This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, are you ready to rock one last time? That's right, me, Russell Sellers, and the illustrious even manager of champions, Todd Weber. That's you.
Hi there.
There he is. We're coming back to you one more time, one last time, for the final Metal PopBlast. That's right, Dark Knight's Metal concluded over a month ago now, and we've even moved on to its sequel, sister, spin-off, whatever story, and more on that in just a minute. But it's time, Todd. We've reached the end, and it's time to go through Dark Knight's Metal Issue 6, the conclusion of this big DC Universe event from Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. Been a hell of a ride, hasn't it?
It was an interesting story, and I'm looking forward to kind of tying it up and going over the high points and what you remember and what's coming out of this series and kind of an overview. We are beating the trade collection, so there's that.
Yes, we are at least getting out before the trade comes out. So, hey, that's one accomplishment, I guess. But in any case, we're picking up here in issue 6 from where we left off at the end of 5. Things have gone to hell pretty fast, but they've kind of gone to hell through this entire series. All of the dark worlds, all of the dark multiverse is now invading our Earth, and we're seeing like dark versions of all these different characters. More specifically, at the end of 5, you see like dark versions of Wonder Woman, and now they're also being aided by dark versions of Superman, dark versions of Green Lantern, a few others interspersed through there. And it's down to Wonder Woman and now Hawkgirl, who's still in her dark metal Lady Blackhawk look, but she's on the side of the Angels now, and they're fighting their asses off trying to beat back this invading army.
Yeah,
basically.
So I had a thought.
Oh, go ahead.
While we were looking at this battle, you know how who is the most lethal of all the Dark Knights?
You would think it would either be Devastator or Batman Who Laughs.
Yeah, the Batman Who Laughs to me, who is, kind of a Jokerized version of Batman or a Batmanized version of Joker, whichever way you want to look at it. And that's kind of what all these infinite villains were. They were, say, Diana, Wonder Woman's arch enemies, but kind of melded with versions of her. So
yes.
Evil versions of the heroes, but a lot of them had characteristics and aspects of that particular hero's rogues gallery.
Definitely. You're seeing Wonder Woman like she's these dark versions of Wonder Woman. Some have a Minotaur head. One of them is definitely mashed up with Cheetah. There's probably a couple of others in there that I'm missing, but that is something I want to remark on before we go any further, is that this might be the best looking issue of the entire series to me. Capullo is killing this.
It definitely has a little bit more detail to everything art-wise, and which is good. I mean, it was delayed a little bit, and I know that there were some art assistance, and we'll see that later in the issue. I think there was an epilogue that was not drawn by Capullo himself.
That is correct, and it was kept off the cover too, so that you wouldn't know that. But yeah, there's a different artist that draws the epilogue bit, and in this big battle that we're going through, all the separate teams that have been on their individual missions up to now, they're all coming together. They're all fighting at the base of what was Challenger's Mountain, which is now fully taken over by Barbatos, and with his giant tuning fork that he's kind of sexing up here a little bit on the first page. Looking a little bit like a kind of a Freddie Mercury hugging his microphone pole, his mic stand, and this battle's not going well. They're just overwhelmed by all of these dark versions of these heroes and villains that just keep coming, and we finally get to a big moment though when Mr. Terrific is just kind of at his wit's end. He's been calling out to Plastic Man to get involved in this fight for a while now, and Plastic Man finally answers the call.
Yeah, the egg awakens, or it hatches, and Plastic Man goes pretty crazy here with his ability to change into different forms. So he clears a big path for the heroes to get through.
Yeah, they're trying to get to the summit of this mountain, trying to get to the opening that's into the dark multiverse, because Wonder Woman wants to get there and dive into the dark multiverse so that she can rescue Superman and Batman. She figures, we need all of the team together, so go get them, and maybe they can, stem the tide here. But as she goes finally into the dark multiverse opening, she's confronted by the giant hawk demon that used to be Carter Hall.
Yeah, and he's been a presence throughout this series, both in his letters and his prologues, and then we've seen him. He's been twisted. He also had his one shot that they added. So definitely a conspicuous effort by Snyder to reestablish both Hawks, kind of in their own way, though.
Very much so. I really liked what he's done with Kendra Saunders up to this point. I think that she's been a very interesting character throughout this series, and I love that he's positioned Carter Hall as he puts it, maybe the greatest detective in all of history. So that's putting Carter Hall onto some interesting footing for his upcoming solo series from Robert Venditti and Brian Hitch. So hopefully they play with that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Same. I'm going to definitely pick up that first issue, see how it goes. But here, Carter is still not himself. He's still very much the destroyer of worlds, the dragon, as it were. And he is about to smash Wonder Woman until Kendra intervenes. And, the power of love, man. It'll get to you. That's what it is. We're going to queue up. We put the metal aside and we're queuing up a little Huey Lewis in the news. Yeah. The power of love intervenes, and Carter is paused for a moment. Barbatos doesn't like that. He doesn't like that one bit. So he hits his dragon with a little dark lightning, as it were, to kind of snap him out of it. And we'll see in a couple of pages later that doesn't really work out quite the way he planned. But before we get there, Flash and Cyborg have returned to get involved in this fight after going off to the House of Heroes to find a little bit of assistance. And who would they find but a whole bunch of different Batmen? What did you think about that splash page?
Yeah, it was kind of left hanging with that House of Heroes issue with the JL Apes. Yes. Or different animal versions, but here we only see a couple. We see Detective Chimp and then a couple other animal versions of Batman specifically. So all the Batmen are coming, and we have one especially who looks like the Frank Miller Dark Knight Batman, and then the Red Sun Batman too, and maybe the Red Rain Batman. The almost Elseworlds. Yeah,
it was like we've gotten the Elseworlds Batman in on this fight. And one of them, he just looks like Batman to me. I can't really tell what version he is.
Top right?
Yeah.
I think that's Gotham by Gaslight Batman, just maybe with the way the collar is.
Yeah, I can see it.
Maybe.
It's tough just from the angle, but really dug that they went and got some extra help, even though this is totally inconsequential for the rest of the issue. It's just a cool splash page.
It's exactly what it is.
And of course, Wonder Woman, having been saved by Kendra, dives deep into the forge, down to the lower level of the dark multiverse where Superman and Batman might be. And of course, we flash back to the main battle where we see the other Batmen. Actually, you see them, the Batman we just saw on that splash page, along with Detective Chimp and his pirate chimp buddy. They're taking on Barbatos directly and getting their asses kicked.
Yeah, Barbatos is fighting actively now as opposed to just kind of standing there. So,
yeah, this fight goes terribly for them very quickly. But just as it seems all is lost, Wonder Woman reemerges from the dark multiverse with Superman and Batman in tow, and they are decked out in this new, very shiny chrome-esque armor that's made of what they say is 10th metal.
10th. And and we've got Batman and Superman have been de-aged to their kind of where they are right now in the rebirth era ages. So the big three are back, but they have this new look, at least for one issue.
Yeah, I dig the armor look.
It's very cool.
I think that all of them, I would especially love to have seen Wonder Woman's armor stick around for a little bit. This armor look on her is kind of badass. So is the Batman one. But yeah, they join the fray, jump right into the fight, and Batman brought back a couple of he brought back a little drop of 10th metal that he fashions into what looks like batarangs, hits Aquaman and Green Lantern with it, and they come up with their own 10th metal armor.
Yep. So five big guys in the league have the 10th metal, and the 10th metal seems to be the key.
It is, and as all of this is stemming the tide, because the 10th metal is taking down all these dark versions, it's making this fight turn around the other way. It all leads to the various heroes and villains who had been captured and put into these tuning towers, tuning forks, are now being freed. They're returning to their normal selves. And then, as Barbatos seems ready to strike again, he takes a big hit to the gut from the now awake Carter Hall.
Yeah, face turn.
Yep, big face turn for Carter Hall. That was a pretty badass moment. But it's the next bit where we get a big reveal that I'm going to go ahead and say it. I called it.
Yep, you're right.
Called this one as we go to where the Batman Who Laughs is down in his own Batcave, or his own version of a Batcave, underneath Challenger's Mountain. And he finally removes the bandages from the face of his prisoner, who is revealed to be the Over-Monitor, or just the Monitor, if you will. So,
the anti-version of the anti-Monitor.
Yes, the positive energy version of the anti-Monitor, as it were. And it seems that the plan has changed a little bit for the Batman Who Laughs. He realizes that Barbatos is losing, and he's just going to wipe out existence.
Yeah, and what was a little confusing is all of a sudden the Batman proper returns and takes him on. But he's no longer wearing the special armor or the 10th metal armor.
Yeah, that was weird. I got to tell you, I wouldn't have given that up.
Yeah, so especially against something from the Dark Multiverse. But that's the story they're telling. I don't know if this was done out of sequence or when. It still looks great. These pages are very clean. I don't know. I mean, it's definitely Capullo, but it has maybe a different ink work to it because it's very strong.
Yeah, I mean, it's super dark as it's that whole cave thing. But Jonathan Glapion definitely did the inks on this.
Okay.
He's the guy. He's always going to be doing this. And it looks very similar to some of the darker scenes in the early days of Snyder and Capullo's
Court of Owls and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's got that feel. And it's got a very similar feel to the end of Endgame, when Batman and Joker are going hand to hand with each other.
Yeah.
So this fight finally, we get the Batman Who Laughs versus Batman proper, hand to hand. And I dug this fight. I thought it was
it's very, very good fight. Batman actually loses because he doesn't take into account the chaos or the willingness of himself killing, which is what happens here. Or he is infected, or the Batman Who Laughs Joker nature has gotten a little more chaotic, a little bit more unpredictable, and Batman doesn't see it coming.
And it's like you've taken Joker and you've actually made him a viable physical threat to Batman, but in a way that I think most people could accept, because this is still Batman's physical body.
Yeah, it's Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, it's still Bruce. He's just been Jokerized. And but then we get the surprise run-in, if you will. Not exactly the face turn, but kind of the enemy of my enemy is my friend moment, when who should appear to help out Batman but the Joker.
Yeah, I didn't see this coming, but it was welcome. It's kind of like in the original Crisis on Infinite Earths, where you had the villains with a brief ability to help. I mean, this has been in a trope of comics where all of a sudden, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But this is kind of more like, well, I can't kill Batman. Nobody else is allowed to kill Batman but me.
Yeah, I kind of take it as that. Like, Joker is the one. If anybody's going to kill Batman, it's going to be him.
Yeah,
and he'll be damned if he's going to sit here and let this carbon copy Joker take his spotlight. That's just not happening. I did really like the joke at the end of the panel on this first page as it goes into the second, where Batman says, "I'm going for the leg," and Joker holds up these two chrome-like blades and says, "I call his face."
Yeah.
Batman just kind of gives him the Joker. He's like, "What? Too soon?"
And I love that, you have these two characters fighting this combination of themselves.
Yes. And man, this battle gets bloody. As they are able to stem the tide, they're keeping Batman Who Laughs from implementing his plan of using the anti-monitor brain along with the over-monitor energy and his own dark energy to destroy all of creation, culminating with Joker slicing off the Batman Who Laughs fingers. Like, all the fingers on his left hand are cut off. We don't necessarily see where this goes just yet, because we have to flash back to the main battle, which, as we now see, has turned in favor of our heroes as they wreck shop on all of the dark versions of Batman. Green Lantern takes out the Murder Machine.
Right.
Superman devastates Devastator.
They're going against their amalgams. They're that's not the right word. Amalgams. They're versions from the Dark Knights. So Aquaman goes against what's her name? What's the character's name?
The Drowned.
The Drowned character. Yeah, I like that. Everybody faces off against the evil Bruce Wayne versions of themselves.
And Arthur wrecks shop here. Like, he just guts her completely. Pretty hardcore blow there. Things have not gone so well for Carter Hall. He has since found himself beaten down by Barbatos. But that's okay, because Barbatos is about to have his own shop wrecked by Kendra Saunders, who flies through his back and out his chest, though apparently...
Yeah, awesome.
Which was... Damn, what a panel. That was awesome. Still doesn't kill him.
No, but Batman returns with the over-monitor, and everybody's back, and then Batman somehow gets his armor back on.
Yeah, he stops to change.
Yeah.
Batman stops to put his armor back on after this fight for some reason. And in the background there in that panel, you can see that this cave is coming down, and it's coming down on top of Joker and the Batman Who Laughs. Because, as we'll go ahead and tell you guys, that's the last we see of them in this issue.
Yeah, that's it. We assume Joker will survive. He's a cockroach, but how?
Yeah, and we know that the Batman Who Laughs also survives this, because he shows up a little bit later on in a different series, and apparently he's going to be a thing going forward. To what extent we don't know yet, but he will be featured later.
Yeah.
The problem here is that even though they have defeated Barbatos, at least for the time, and all the Dark Armies are defeated, the Earth is still sunk into the Dark Multiverse, and to raise it back out, the antenna on top of Challenger's Mountain was their last hope. Well, that also got obliterated. It was destroyed during this fight. So now all the heroes, still decked out in their 10th metal armor, they're kind of screwed here. But the Overmonitor has some potentially good news for them.
Yeah, he has a plan. But I do, it's all of a sudden we have the most speech balloon heavy page of the whole thing.
Yep.
With all this exposition. So, that's just how you tie things together, how you wrap things up.
It really is. And I did appreciate that the Batman Who Laughs explained that the Overmonitor was only just now starting to regain some of his old abilities from the original Crisis. So that was a callback to Crisis on Infinite Earths, and that's how the Batman Who Laughs was able to take him, was by getting him at a weakened point. But now it seems he's coming back. He's kind of on the mend, if you will. Or, well, he will be now that he has a chance to heal instead of being mercilessly beaten every so often.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens with him. I don't know what his purpose, other than in the original Crisis, his purpose was to hold the multiverse together to keep it from converging. But and then he dies. He's killed by the Anti-Monitor, but he's alive here. Mm-hmm. And I guess we'll find somebody will use him in the future, especially with the expansion into more cosmic stories, as we'll see later in what we're talking about.
I got a feeling he's going to show up at some point in the very near future. I don't think he was reintroduced here for nothing.
Yeah.
But as it turns out, the armor that all of these characters are wearing, the 10th metal, vibrates in a similar way to that tower. And as the Overmonitor explains, every bit of matter and every living thing has trace amounts of the 10th metal in them. It's everywhere.
Okay.
And if these heroes can channel that, they may not need the tower at all. They might be able to find enough vibrational energy here. Of course, they're about to. And it will bring the Earth out of the Dark Multiverse and restore it to where it's supposed to be, and slam the door shut on the Dark Multiverse.
But in doing so, which is great. I mean, it's,
yes.
But in doing so, they destroy the source wall.
Yep. They crack it open anyway. And I mean, totally inadvertent. Like, their plan works here, but now the source wall has a gigantic hole in it.
Yeah. And this postscript that's kind of describing what happens is written by Hawkman, we would presume.
Yes. Hawkman is giving his assessment of things that are happening. He says, but then they went further, with all of us at their backs to the very limit of the multiverse, the source wall where everything ends. And before they knew it, they'd broken through to the other side, to where even greater mysteries lay waiting. They did it connected to you, to me, for Element X. The very substance of the Forge of Worlds is in all of us, because in the end, we're all a little metal. Yeah.
Couldn't resist.
Yeah, they couldn't resist, jamming that last one in. But then, just as that is the main story of Metal concluded, the heroes are able to tap into all of the little bit of metal in everyone, restoring Earth, restoring things back to the way they were. Of course, probably not sending all of the Dark Multiverse beings back from whence they came. Some of them are still around. We don't know to what extent yet, but
yeah, we don't know who died. We know Drowned is probably finished.
Yeah, she's dead for sure.
Right.
She's not coming back from that one. Murder Machine, Devastator, they're down. As is Red Death. We all know.
We saw him.
We saw him get obliterated. and
Mm-hmm.
I believe the Dawnbreaker is also dead. So that leaves only the Batman Who Laughs and his menagerie of Robins. So
yeah, that ties up the story, but then we get to
a nice epilogue.
A very unexpected epilogue, I would say.
I would agree with that. We have this bright light. It starts with the bright light of what you would assume might be the hand of creation, which is what you saw in the last little bit of the previous story. As it turns out, it's just Alfred opening the door of Wayne Manor and inviting you inside to a party featuring
a formal dinner party.
Very formal. Everybody's in tuxes. Wonder Woman's still like, I would say it's a more formal wear, but she's still keeping her motif. She's like, yeah, I'm not doing this. Like, it's still like very Wonder Woman-esque. You see Kendra also standing in the back. Hal Jordan also refusing to go with the full tux and keeping on the flight jacket.
Yeah, that was a nice touch. Notice that everybody is stag here. So
Yes.
all our married or encoupled characters, not even Hawkman's here, because we don't know who Hawkman is at this point, you know.
Yeah, this is I think very strictly a meeting of the future Justice League.
Yeah,
I think it makes sense.
Yeah, and you can tell. I mean, it's definitely what everybody wants, which is Justice League Unlimited or the animated Justice League, but with Hal instead of John, and then kind of done in the style maybe of the Morrison JLA, which everybody holds up as the last time JLA was great.
Yes, and this whole gathering here, I mean, this is definitely the core group, and I love Martian Manhunter back here wearing a tux as well. That's a nice touch. And we also get Bruce explaining to everybody a little bit of what happened here, like how the Overmonitor is keeping Barbatos chained up at the bottom of the Dark Multiverse. So that's where he went.
Yeah.
And he'll be forced to watch as the World Forge burns bright and new again, awaiting the true Forger's return. Our allies from the multiverse are rebuilding the House of Heroes, preparing for the new worlds that may rise to meet it. All of creation is rich with new possibility. But he also explains that there are new threats that have opened up as well. There are new things that are coming into this world that we may not have seen yet, that we're not necessarily prepared for. But I also like that we get a little update on Carter Hall. He is on Black Hawk Island, recovering, and he's looking more like his old self.
Yeah, he's fully human again, and they keep going, and they use this to introduce some new teams that spun out of Metal even before Metal was over. So, if you're waiting to read about those teams, read this first, and then read about those. If any of them have not been canceled yet, I'm not sure.
Not so far, though. I got a few of them on the hit list that I don't think are going to make it much further.
Yeah.
But you get looks at the Immortal Men, Silencer, the Unexpected, which is whatever, and a little surprise cameo here from the Metal Men, which I thought was kind of nice. Yeah, kind of hoping that's going to mean that they play a role in maybe in Hawkman's book, because they're the ones watching over him, along with Red Tornado. So,
now, are you sure that's that could be Dr. Payton, right? Or could it, no, it's definitely Hawkman, isn't it? Okay, yeah, because the transition. I'm sorry, I saw that panel out of context where they were looking over the character. That's them.
Yep, definitely.
Dr. Magnus. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah. I could see that. I could see the Metal Men and Dr. Magnus, all of them playing a role in Hawkman's upcoming adventures, and the Metal Men need a place in this new universe. So hopefully that's going to happen. But you knew we wouldn't get out of this without one last visit to the Dreaming, to the library, to check in on Daniel and to see how things are going there. And it turns out there's a book missing.
Yeah, and so I wonder if they're just leaving this alone to help build the Sandman universe, which is coming out, was recently solicited. So
I think so.
Maybe, yeah, that's cool because he played a big part in this story.
I think this story definitely sets up the upcoming Sandman universe that's going to be spinning out, being overseen by Neil Gaiman himself. But this story, it's meant to be in continuity with the larger DC universe, but it gets to play in its own corner and do its own thing. But Metal, this all helps to set that up as well. So there's your little tease for that universe, the tease for the new age of DC heroes. And then when you flip the page to this next big splash, you get a look at stories. A couple of stories that are currently running in DC right now. The Dark Stars story that's happening over in Green Lantern. And you get a look at the Dark Pantheon that's happening in Wonder Woman from James Robinson. This whole Atlantis rising out of the sea, that hasn't happened yet. So this is a look. That's a look at the future. And then the last bit, you get the tease of Flash War.
Right, which is happening right now.
Yep, which is happening right now, and I'll go ahead and plug that first issue. It was actually really good.
I hear it is.
I was very impressed. And then on that last little bit there, you see our first glimpse, our actual first appearance of the Omega Titans.
Omega Titans. And they use the phrase, no justice, in that last paragraph. So they're doing a direct transition into the next weekly event that came out of Metal, No Justice. And we see the Omega Titans, and let's see, there was Wisdom, Mystery, Entropy, and Wonder. There we go.
Yes. That was our first cameo appearance of the Omega Titans before we very quickly flash back to this beautiful artwork done by Mikhail Janin.
Yep.
To the dinner scene where they're basically just toasting the reformation of the Justice League and to a job well done. And the next part is where we have a little bit more fun, where apparently Alfred, John Kent, and Damian Wayne have formed a little three-piece metal band, and
of course Alfred's playing drums. Of course, with his headband and ponytail, and I don't know,
with his tie as his bandana. That is rocking. This is just a funny scene, including several other people who were involved in the story outside of the main league. So here we're seeing members of the Titans. Swamp Thing shows up. You got Detective Chimp in there too.
Yep.
Mr.
Terrific. Yeah.
Batgirl and Dick definitely making eyes at each other, as well they should.
I see. Red Arrow, Speedy, Arsenal. There it is, and Donna Troy, I believe.
Yes, they're all members of the Titans having a good time here. Looks like up here in the foreground, maybe these are Teen Titans out of costume. I'm not as familiar with what they look like outside of that, but anyway, good final scene here. But Bruce pulls Clark and Diana aside because he has one last thing to show them before we leave. And as you flip to the next page, he's taking them into his study. Very detailed art here. I like this page. And on his desk, you can see blueprint plans labeled Hall of Justice.
Yay. So the classic Hall of Justice from Super Friends era. We all, guys my age who tend to be the writers of DC Comics at this point, have an affinity for that version. And, we'll talk a little bit more about that and some of the stuff spinning out of Justice League very soon.
How hard you mark out for that Hall of Justice?
Oh, design? Absolutely. That needs to be a thing always.
I knew you did. I knew you'd mark out for that.
I don't need no satellite or watchtower.
Oh, I got you. I'm good with either of those, but Hall of Justice, at least as I understand the plan going forward, sounds like a lot of fun. So overall, let's go ahead and before we move into a very brief talk on No Justice, out of 10, or since this is Metal, out of 11.
Yeah, this goes to 11.
This goes to 11. How would you rank Metal as an event?
I think if you read it as a trade or you read consecutively, it reads much stronger than individual issues because there's so much going on. There's so much craziness. I feel that the art was a little inconsistent at times too, just because Capullo had never done anything quite like this, in my opinion. Tend to stick around single hero stories. I'm going to give this a 6 plus or 6 to 7. Still better than your average cross company crossover, like Convergence or a lot of the Marvel crossovers.
Oh, sure.
But this didn't go to the full 11, which would be something like, Infinite Crisis or something like that.
Oh, I got you. For me, I think I'm a little bit higher on it. Maybe not much. I will give it a 7.5. 7.5 out of 11. I think that's fair.
Okay.
For a lot of the same reasons that you said, the art in a couple of places did seem a little inconsistent, but I think it was right around then that they started taking those breaks to let Capullo catch up a little, so that helped. The unnecessary amount of tie-ins also kind of drug it down a little bit, though I will give some of those tie-ins credit as being really good. That some of it's just unnecessary. It's a really good story overall, and one that certainly reads better in the long form in the trade rather than waiting like every month or every couple of months. This was one that was for sure written for the trade. So if you've been waiting to read it, or if maybe you were turned off by it completely, certain folks in the Place to Be Nation Pop Pantheon, I would say give it another shot in the long form. It is actually good, and it has a very satisfying ending.
Yeah, I think he's holding out hope. That particular individual is holding out hope that Scott Snyder is also a fan of classic country. So we will have classic country DC country nights or something like that. Yeah, I'm going to say it's suffered because it was stretched out so long. I don't know if they could have held off on the first couple issues just to get it on a better schedule. Maybe every couple weeks, 3 weeks between issues or something like that. Because you go back, reaching back to the Forge, that started in last spring.
Yeah.
So this was almost a year-long event with the whole thing.
You're right. It took way too long to get everything finished. So I would agree. If they could have kept it to a very strict monthly schedule, this probably would have turned out even better. But as it stands, as DC universe-wide events go, not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. A fun read, and one that definitely sets up a potentially bright future with the weekly event that followed it.
I'm going to say this was the best event since Flashpoint. I know that's a low bar, but best crossover since then, in my opinion.
I think that's fair. And Flashpoint was another one of those that was also really good. It felt a little like that, didn't it? The whole almost hopelessness of it all, only to have like a big triumphant moment saved for the very end. So some cool stuff in there, very cool stuff. But since it's been a month since the end, more than a month since that ended, we've had the kickoff of the next era of Justice League startup with Scott Snyder, James Tynion IV, Josh Williamson, Francis Manapul, Marcus Toe, and Riley Rosmo's Justice League No Justice weekly 4-issue event.
Yeah.
We're not going to do to No Justice what we've done with Metal. It would take forever. So
let's just hit the high points of this one.
Yeah, we're just going to kind of run through this real quick.
Spoiler alert if you have not read No Justice.
We've been spoiling everything up to this point, guys.
I know, but this is current. So come back to this if you haven't read the 4 issues, but we'll kind of hit the No Justice spins right out of it with the League ending up having to deal with the repercussions of the Source Wall blowing up, specifically the Green Lantern Corps, right?
Yeah, they show up and say, hey, there's a gigantic hole in the Source Wall now. You guys did this. So what is happening here? And as it turns out, as we said at the end of Metal number 6, you got your first glimpse of the Omega Titans. Well, they are awake, and they are now coming to devour the world, the worlds with sentient life on it.
Think like Galactus or maybe the Eternals. I'm trying to think. Is that the name of the characters I'm thinking of? The giant Kirby constructs. These are very Kirby inspired.
Oh, very. This whole story, all of No Justice, has a very Jack Kirby feel to it, but in like the best possible way. And these four Titans represent, as they're described, they're impossibly powerful cosmic gods embodying one of the fundamental elemental energies of sentient life. Each one represents one element, that being entropy, wisdom, wonder, and mystery.
So, yeah, this is kind of conveniently set up by the writers to reflect the new teams that are going to be spinning out of this, I think.
That's exactly what it is. And the first world that they start to or stop to devour is Kolu, the homeworld of Brainiac. So, of course, Brainiac himself sees these as like the greatest threat to everything, even to himself, and decides he's going to try and save his own world, but that's not going to work out too well because these things apparently are too powerful for him alone.
Yeah, and he's seen as a villain, and even on his home world. So it's not like he's the representative of that world fighting other places. He's a villain there too, but he's always been able to torment Superman and the heroes of Earth because they're, he doesn't have any ties to it. He likes to collect these worlds and keep them, much like he kept Kandor for all those years.
And what he does is he instead goes to Earth, and it looks like an attack at first. And so all the heroes and even a few villains respond in kind to try and stave off this supposed new Brainiac invasion. Of course, he is able to defeat the Earth heroes to an extent, only to explain to them what has happened here with the breaching of the Source Wall and with the Omega Titans being awakened. He says that they're the oldest beings in the universe, or, well, not they are, but that the oldest beings in the universe share a myth about these four brothers who are the cosmic gods that we just described. And
he's kidnapped a whole bunch of Leaguers, kind of the core Leaguers, and then select members of the other teams like Suicide Squad, Teen Titans, and Titans.
Yes. Along with, of course, the core members of the Justice League. And each of the Omega Titans, as sentient beings, believe that their core energy to be the dominant power of intelligent life. And to prove themselves right, they planted seeds of cosmic energy in world after world. At the end of the universe, according to the myth, these Titans were supposed to return to the civilizations that grew over eons, weigh which energy was the prime or the supreme on each world, and the winning brother would get to reabsorb that world. So the universe, as Brainiac describes it, as seen by them, as the Omega Titans see it, is their garden to be devoured.
Yeah, and so Brainiac's also brought a team of villains or a group of villains or anti-heroes as well, including some pretty unusual choices.
You got Starro making a return from his appearance in Metal. You've got the Demon Etrigan, Lex Luthor, Sinestro, and Lobo and Deathstroke.
Yeah, quite the rogues gallery there. Brainiac has also outfitted them with node-equipped suits so yet again, more costumes, new costumes, League-specific costumes.
Yes.
That all gravitate towards the particular regions of Kolu where these trees are.
And it's all... of course, these costumes are temporary to this particular story, with each team being divided into their respective energies that they're supposed to go after on Kolu. But to make a long story short...
we got to talk about Amanda Waller and what she does.
Yes. They go... All the heroes and villains agree to help out here because they realize that, as Brainiac puts it, once Kolu has been taken care of, Earth would be next. So big happenings there. And, why don't you take it and tell the folks what was Amanda Waller's deal?
She had these contingency plans for, I think it was an Apocalypse link, like her plans to stop Darkseid in case there was ever another full-on Darkseid invasion. And she collects all these psychics of Earth, and I don't recognize too many of them. I recognize the Gem, son of Saturn, and I think it's Rick Flag. There, I didn't know he was a psychic. I guess I haven't been reading Suicide Squad. I see Miss Martian in there, and Hector Hammond in the background.
I think that was Max Lord.
Maxwell Lord. Okay. Yeah, he's kind of dressed like Rick Flag, but Max Lord would make a little bit more sense because he is a psychic. And then the Skull character. Don't know if that's Dr. Destiny or Mr. Bones, but anyway, psychic heroes, telepaths, and they are designed to hack Brainiac. And they end up short-circuiting him, and he dies. Boom goes Brainiac.
That was unexpected.
Yeah, did not expect that to happen. That was the end of issue 1. Issue 2 starts out with them kind of picking up the pieces literally of Brainiac, and we also have Amanda Waller. We jump in time, and she is found at the North Pole, the Arctic Circle. This is kind of straight out of the issue Green Arrow Annual number 2. And did you read that issue?
I did. I thought it was really well done. The Benson sisters have done really good work over on Batgirl and the Birds of Prey. So this was kind of their opening statement for their upcoming Green Arrow run. And
if they are going to be the writers on Green Arrow, I would urge checking it out. This is a very solid issue. It kind of tells the story of Green Arrow and Amanda Waller and how he was the only hero to avoid being caught by Brainiac and knocked out and placed in either placed in stasis or kidnapped and used to try to save Kolu. So Green Arrow avoided that, and big things happened because he was able to do that. He's at the end of No Justice, he's presented with a unique responsibility. Lex Luthor kind of takes control of things and up on Kolu and says, what's going on? They break the groups into 4 unique teams that were preordained by Brainiac. They're trying to follow Brainiac's plan at this point to save the planet, even though he's dead.
Yeah, and it goes pretty rough for them. They start. It's like they take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and then ultimately they wind up failing here. But not before they discover a pretty unexpected character who hasn't been seen in DC in quite a while, I don't think.
Yeah, they find a guy named Vril Dox, who is Brainiac's son, and
Brainiac
you may have
2.0, as he calls himself.
May have seen him. Yeah, I remember what they just called him, not Brainiac Jr. or something like that. He was in the classic Legion 90, Legion 88, 89, 90 series, and then Rebels after that. And they did use him in a revival a few years later, but he was always a good guy, kind of a conflicted good guy because he had this evil inside of him, but he was always trying to work on the side of good and interacted with characters like the Dark Stars. And it was a fun book, had some great art by Barry Kitson back in the day. I remember that quite well.
Yep, he's back now, but he's not too friendly to the League here.
No, eventually it turns out that he's got the entire programming of Brainiac, and so we see a little bit of a heel turn where he wants to follow through. And after Kolu gets destroyed in issue 3, because the heroes aren't able to follow Brainiac's original plan, Brainiac 2.0 joins up with the Omega Titans, or at least kind of oversees or follows up with them to unleash these trees on Earth and draw the Omega Titans, there it is, to Earth to do what they did to Kolu.
Yep. The plan from Brainiac to actually compel the heroes to help him is that he was going to speed up the growth of the trees on Earth. These different seeds were going to bloom, and they would be so enticing to the Omega Titans they would go there next. So Brainiac, while on the side of the Angels, sort of, was still being very Brainiac about it. And that seems to be the case with his kid here. And I don't have the issues in front of me currently, but the heroes and villains all seem to learn from their mistakes on Kolu and apply that to how they handle it on Earth.
Yeah, but basically that's what happens. You have the teams saying it took this particular method to take down they were able to take down one Omega Titan on Kolu, and so they split into their teams, and they call in the Green Lantern Corps. Green Arrow has a radio link to Hal Jordan, and the Corps comes and helps, and I mean, it's kind of what you expect, but it happens very, very efficiently here in these 4 issues.
They make the most of their space in all 4 of these issues, and I appreciated that it was a weekly, just like we were saying about Metal, how what hurt it was being drawn out for so long. I think if you had drawn out No Justice, it would have hurt it in the long run. But having it be a weekly event, I thought it was really strong, and it read so well.
Yeah, I think if you pick up these issues or the trade that's coming out in a couple weeks, this would be a very strong, smooth read. A lot of things happen to set up future leagues and rivalries. You have a great moment between Lex Luthor and Martian Manhunter, who had kind of been confidants throughout this whole thing, where Luthor is going to go start off his own Legion of Doom, it seems, is what's going to spin out of this. So once again, a Super Friends homage.
I very much appreciated that whole bit.
Oh yeah,
the multiple scenes actually with Martian Manhunter and Lex Luthor. How, man, the banter between those two was really well done. Scott Snyder nailed that part.
And they're really establishing Johns as a very important character once again, and he's been downplayed for a long time, but now he's kind of reestablished within the league and looked up to by the members of the league. And so he's the chairman, or elected the first chairman of the JL.
Yeah, I really appreciated what they're doing with him. I think that a lot of people have been critical of DC since 2011, since the New 52 continuity restarted Justice League, and how Martian Manhunter was kind of left out of it.
In place with Cyborg, kind of bringing Cyborg in, and why not both? I think you can.
Yeah.
With this new configuration of the leagues, you're going to see both be used, and it doesn't hurt anybody.
No, it doesn't at all. And I really appreciate that we've got all of them. It's like, instead of Snyder saying, "Oh, well, I'm just going to go back to JLA as it was," he's like, "Why not a more Justice League Unlimited approach where we have everyone?"
Yeah,
and get to play with all the toys in the sandbox as they're needed. So this is like his upcoming Justice League from this foundation. You can see is certainly going to be the continuity driver of DC Comics.
And these 3 teams spinning out of this, the Justice League Odyssey, Dark, and the traditional Justice League, are by no means permanent. You have Wonder Woman in both the Justice League Odyssey and maybe the regular Justice League, so she's as popular as ever. Cyborg in both the regular Justice League and then the Justice League. I'm sorry, Wonder Woman's in Justice League Dark.
Yes.
And other
Cyborg's
characters that were
Odyssey.
Yeah. So characters like Beast Boy and Starfire and Raven were used throughout No Justice, and looks like Starfire's getting called up to the big leagues, just maybe because of her spacefaring ways. She's an alien from Tamaran, and so she'll be on part of this team. And that book's going to be the most beautifully drawn team book you'll ever read. Because who's the artist?
That guy, the guy who made Aquaman the best looking DC book for a few months. And one thing that we should mention, though, I'm glad you brought up Tamaran, because it's something else from No Justice that I think it has in the background set up a potentially big story going forward, and that all these worlds that Brainiac had shrunk and bottled up, apparently there was a big case of them either on that ship or somewhere deep in Kolu, and when it exploded, that case is now returning to normal size, and one of those worlds was Tamaran.
Right. So we'll have all these worlds that are going to be, who knows how they will find their orbits or whatever. But yeah. I have a feeling that's what Justice League Odyssey is going to be somewhat about.
I do too. And this whole setup, though, made me so much more curious about Justice League Odyssey. That was the one book where I was kind of like, I don't know if I know it's going to be like you said, it's going to be the most gorgeous team book on the shelf, but is it going to be one that I really feel like I just have to read? And also the presence of Darkseid.
And Lobo too, right?
Yeah. I was wondering how that was really going to work. But I kind of appreciate that Darkseid is really kind of kept out of this story, out of No Justice.
Yeah, well, let's let Odyssey tell that tale.
Yeah, that's going to come up in Odyssey, and from the solicits and from stuff that I've read, it doesn't sound like Darkseid is really a member of that team proper. It's more like he's an ancillary character, or he's kind of just outside of it and trying to benefit from what they're doing, but he's still going to be Darkseid about it. Yeah. He's going to manipulate this team to get what he wants, and then he ultimately, will turn on them. You have to see that coming.
Yeah, you got to assume that's going to happen. Cool. I think we did it.
I think we did too. I think we have covered No Justice. We've covered Metal. Of course, you guys know that at the end of No Justice, they're able to actually defeat. And I was kind of surprised by this. They defeated the Omega Titans completely. One of them is killed by his other brothers.
Right. Yeah, they were able to They were able to load up the Entropy Titan with all the seeds from the trees, and so they were all kind of drawn towards him. And so, very smart. Yeah. Good plan.
And this is where Scott Snyder's Grant Morrison impression actually works really well, because he applied it not to Batman, but those big cosmic and crazy ideas to the larger league. And by God, this is the kind of thing that DC Comics can do well. And go ahead.
One thing I want to point out, you had multiple creators on this, writers. You had Williamson, Tynion, and Snyder. So you have to assume Snyder did kind of like the detailed plotting, but I think Tynion had a lot to do with the scripting and the character dialogue, because that was the strength of Detective Comics when he was on that book. So the interactions between the characters were very strong that way. I think the book benefited greatly because of that. The characters felt more themselves to me than they did in Metal.
I would agree with that. I think that that's really been James Tynion IV's
Tynion, there it is.
Tynion.
I had a 50-50 chance.
I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right. But his claim to fame, I think, really is his ability to write characters that feel, I guess, individuals. They feel like individuals. They don't feel like they all share the same voice. They genuinely feel like the DC characters you recognize, and I think it's because he views them a lot of the same ways that we do, and it just works. He knocks the dialogue out of the park here. I think Williamson probably wrote some of this dialogue as well.
Okay.
Particularly where the villains are concerned, because I feel like that's really his strength. Anytime he's writing Reverse Flash or Zoom or any of the other, most of the other Flash villains over in his Flash run, that's when I like the book the most. His hero dialogue leaves a little bit to be desired at times, but there's a lot to love in his approach to villains. So that's where I think his contributions probably came in here. But I'm sure that they all had something to do with the plotting of it. But let's wrap this one up. Justice League No Justice, first score out of 10, and then tell me what you're most excited to read from the upcoming Justice League relaunch.
8.5 out of 10, and I am looking forward to the core Justice League book with Snyder and I believe it's Jim Chung. Is that his name?
Jim Chung and Jorge Jimenez trading art duties, because it's going to be a twice monthly book.
Oh, man. Okay. Well, I hope they stay on it and that it's consistent, and we get a top-tier jail book finally, although Hitch was not good. And then Christopher Priest did a nice job of kind of righting the ship, but it wasn't spectacular. But I don't think he was allowed to be spectacular with it. I think he was just trying to fix the mistakes that Hitch had made. So I am looking forward to the core Justice League book. That drops right after this podcast.
Yes. So good ring. I think I'm going to agree with you. 8.5 out of 10 sounds good. I can't dispute any of that. The Francis Manapul art was gorgeous throughout. Even though he did get some help from Marcus Toe, who didn't do too shabby a job himself.
Yeah, very consistent.
And Riley Rosmo, who I'm hot and cold on. But overall, this was a good book. This was a good series. Excellent weekly. I'm on board with all of the Justice League books that are coming out. As I said, I think they're all going to look great. They're all going to be, they're going to fulfill a niche in there. That main Justice League book is definitely the star of the show. Very much looking forward to that. And yeah, we've got one other book that's probably going to spin out of all this, as all those files from Brainiac went somewhere. Amanda Waller took them, but then Batman decided to get them for himself, but decided not to keep them. As I read it, he entrusted them to Black Lightning.
Yeah, which is an interesting choice. I mean, it's obviously setting up an outsiders team, which is fine. Fine by me.
So yeah, I'm totally good with it. We're getting an outsiders book that's probably going to spin out of Detective Comics coming up. So man, it's all connected. I don't think I've ever enjoyed a time in DC quite like this before, where everything genuinely feels like it's feeding off of itself. Like this is an interconnected universe that finally truly feels like an interconnected universe, and in some really big and awesome ways. Well, guys, that kind of brings us to the end of this series. Hope you guys have enjoyed it as much as we've enjoyed doing it. And Todd, I want to say thank you for doing this series with me. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, we work well together, and we got to take a look at a book and break it down and hopefully simplify it, or at least summarize it in a way that helped people who didn't have all the experience with the DCU understand it a little bit better, or maybe say, oh, I didn't like this, but did you catch this going on? And maybe they liked it. So we appreciate anybody who listened to this series of podcasts.
Absolutely. And of course, you can catch me and Todd doing our thing on a lot of other shows as well. So listen out for shows like the Marvel Age podcast, which would be completely different from this, where Todd and myself, along with Tim Capel and Nick Duke, the Sarcastic Four, if you will, break down each year of Marvel Comics starting from 1961 all the way up to, I think we're going to maybe 2010, maybe beyond. Who knows?
I don't know. We'll see how long it goes, or what happens if I end up dying because I'm too old. You're not allowed to continue that show without me, guys.
We will cancel the show immediately if that happens. Actually, we'll just revive you because, as you know, in comics, death is a revolving door.
Yep. Nobody stays. Only Uncle Ben stays dead forever.
Yes. And that's
spoiler alert.
That's just until we go and get an alternate universe version of him. But in any case, you can also listen to the Marvel Age Masterclass with Mr. Ben Morse doing a monthly reaction show to our antics and ravings, where he gets to throw in some antics and ravings of his own. I was on the first episode of that, which you can find now on the Place to Be Nation pop feed. So go listen to all of that, along with all of the other awesome Place to Be Nation pop and Place to Be Nation podcasts on this network. And of course, if you want to hit me up on Twitter to talk about Metal, No Justice, Marvel Age, any of it, you can hit me up at Russell_Sellers. Todd, where they find you at?
At Todd Weber Guitar on the Twitter machine. Also join the Place to Be Nation comics book on Facebook, comics group on damn it. Please join.
We're gonna get it.
Place to Be Nation comics group on Facebook.
That's it. And It's been jumping in there lately. Lots of good discussion. People getting involved, talking about their favorite books, stuff they're liking, stuff they're not liking. It's all good. Join up. We'll let you in, and we'll talk about anything and everything you're reading in comics. We love it all. So, guys, it was fun. And throw up the devil horns. Rock out.
One last time.
One more time.
Nothing can stop the metal.
Nothing stops the metal. And with that, we're going to stop the metal. You have a good one, guys.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey, pro wrestling announcer Kevin Kelly here. I want to make sure you are all subscribed to all the great feeds here at Place to Be Nation. It's really easy to do. Just head to iTunes or your preferred podcatcher app today and search and subscribe to the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed, which of course includes the full archives of the Kevin Kelly Show, the Place to Be Nation pod feed, and the Pro Wrestling Only feed. Subscribe, listen, and then rate us and leave feedback today. And be sure to give Justin your true thoughts. I mean, don't hold back. After all, he is kind of a jerk. Just listen to Scott.
Place to Be Nation's JT Rosero and Chad Campbell here. We want to let you know that we have a ton of great podcasts available to you on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and PlayStation.com, and we offer those to you on 3 great feeds. On the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed, we bring you the Mothership, the original Place to Be podcast, as well as Main Event, Lucha Afterground, and our monthly pay-per-view reaction shows, as well as the Our Vantage Point podcast and Jeff Learns Wrestling. In addition to these full-length shows, we also deliver quick-hit PopBlasts on topics old and new.
Over on the Pro Wrestling Only feed, we dive deep inside the wrestling business with a stacked army of experts leading the way. The feed features potpourri shows such as This Week in Wrestling, Greetings from Allentown, Psychology is Dead, Puro Potpourri, Stacy and Elliot's Bogus Journey, and the Military Industrial Suplex. We also have shows that focus intently on certain topics like Letters from Center Stage, Space City, and NWA Classics on Demand Adventure, Through the Years, Strong Style History, Strong Style Story, and Mount Olympus. Plus, the feed has the full archives of legendary shows like Titans of Wrestling, Where the Big Boys Play, Letters from Kayfabe, and much more. And on our popular Place to Be Nation Pop podcast feed, we offer such great shows as the Glenn Butler Podcast Hour Spectacular, Rank and File, PTBN Dadcast, Go Home in a Box, NBA Team, and Lucha Undead, as well as a veritable podcast heaven for comics fans with the Hard Traveling Fanboys, Sellers Points, Todd Weber's Conversation, Geek and Sassy, and Imaginary Stories podcasts.
You can find all of these current shows plus archives of our past podcasts, including The Kevin Kelly Show, as well by subscribing to all of our feeds on iTunes. And while there, be sure to rate and leave feedback as well. All of these shows, plus others available on PlaceToBeNation.com, where we cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, plus in-depth stretch projects and more. Be sure to support our site by using PlaceToBeNation.com/Amazon when shopping online, and download our free PTB Vintage Vault Refresh ebooks via the links on our site. We also want to thank our friends at Bonehead's Wing Bar in Westworld, Newark, Rhode Island, and Fall River, Massachusetts, thehistoryofwrestling.com, and Scott Keith's Blog of Doom. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr as well. PlayStationNation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.